This is a week of shifting energies. Multiple planets are crossing into new signs. The sun is hours from leaving Taurus and entering into Gemini. Mercury has already entered his new sign, and Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, so this is Mercury's season. So the sign that Mercury is in is very important, and he's in his domicile, where his home, where he's quite happy and resourced and able to move fast. But Mars has just stepped into Taurus, where he has to slow down. Venus has entered Cancer. She too is slowing down and moving into feeling. And by the end of this week, the sky will look very different than it did at the start of the week. Presiding over all of this is Mercury, and he's the god of doorways. He's the one who knows the passageways. He's known as a psychopomp, or a guide of souls. So he's guiding us as we meet this crossroads and this moment where we're to change direction, and where certain things slow down and other things speed up, and where we might get a flash of knowing, where we know that something needs to change and we need to move in a different direction. The way this particular Gemini season is opening, with all the planets crossing into new ground, and it's happening in rapid succession right now, this is very mercurial, very shape-shifting. It's a time that requires some fresh perspectives and some fresh energy. The sun is at 29 degrees of Taurus on May 20th and then moves into Gemini on May 21st. This is the last degree of Taurus. It's the last breath of the sign, and it's just, the sun's just hours from crossing into Gemini. So this is the degree of now or never, of something reaching its final expression before the door closes. So it's kind of a time to wrap things up in terms of finances. Taurus is an exploration of what we value and what we've been receiving from the earth. Again, it's the earth element. And it's the element where we materially manifest and make it into concrete form. And so now things shift away from that. So something's been completed, it's taken its final form, and now it's time to sort of move on from that into movement again, into malleability. So let's talk a little bit more about Hermes, Mercury, because to get the most out of Gemini season, we want to exalt his name and his virtues and give him the attention that he deserves. So the ancient Greeks placed statues of him at every boundary, and they were called herms. These are like pillars marking property lines, crossroads, doorways, the entrances of cities. So Hermes presided over every place where one thing became another. So he's kind of the god of liminality, which is the boundary way. So he's the messenger of the gods. He's the only one trusted to carry communication between worlds. The psychopomp, the guide of souls, the one who holds the lamp in the dark passage and walks beside the dead as they cross. He's also the trickster. He's the one who knows that reality is more permeable than any system admits. So he challenges systems and ways of thinking and ways of doing things that we think are absolutely, this is the way it is, can't move, and yet it can. And he shows you how. He's the magician, and in the tarot tradition, he's the one who stands at the intersection of the elements and shapes the current with his will and his voice. So taking earth and air and fire and water and making it into something. So changing its form. So what unites all these faces is that Hermes is the god of the place between, the crossing, the passage. He's at home in the in-between in a way that no other god is. And this is where his power comes from. And this is where some of the beauty of Gemini lives, in the way that I think of Gemini as being this sparkly gem with many faces that reflect the light in different ways as you turn the gem, and all of them are true. So this week, every personal planet is moving through one of these passageways. So Mercury prompts us to pivot and shift gears. So as Mercury moved into Gemini, he had to cross Uranus, and this was at 1 degree of the sign where Uranus is right now. And even though that is something that happened earlier in the week, it matters now because Mercury has just arrived in his home. He's fast, he's articulate, he's fully himself, and it's the first thing that happens when he gets home. Less than a day after his arrival, Uranus strikes him with lightning. And he's like, wow. So he enters into his own sign and gets this impetus to change and to look at things, or to sort of download an intuitive hit and something that he hasn't thought of before. So something new, this flash of lightning kind of knowing that Uranus tends to bring. So this is one of those signatures that can be felt in the nervous system. The mind, Mercury is the mind. And Uranus is said to be, in modern astrology, a higher octave of Mercury. So it elevates Mercury and makes his seeing, and our seeing, it opens our minds. And it may show us the necessity for change in how we're directing our energy. Remember that Mercury is associated with the magician in the tarot. So he knows that language isn't neutral, that the words you speak shape the reality that you inhabit. So the story you tell is the world that becomes possible. The words spoken this week carry particular power, and it's sort of, because he's the ruler of Gemini, it gives us the flavor of the entire Gemini season. If you write, there might be a lot of more clarity, or you might write something that you think is initially kind of crazy, but is actually maybe genius. And so don't erase anything yet. Don't delete anything yet. Let it sit there and see what happens. The mind is operating at a different voltage. And remember, Mercury's in his home sign here, so he's resourced, and he loves to play. He loves to be curious about things, and he loves to be expressed. So Mars has also entered Taurus. That happens on May 18th. So from Aries, where he was in his domicile, into Taurus, where he's said to be in his detriment. So he's not as happy in Taurus. He has to work a little bit harder. He's in Venus's domicile. So he's basically at the spa. This is the god of war at the spa. Think of him, he has a mud mask on, and he's listening to some nice meditation music or some beautiful piano music. And he's like, I really just kind of want to get out into the world and do my thing and fight the fights. And here I am kind of stuck in, somebody's trying to do his hair, and he's like, come on now, right? He gets impatient with being here. He doesn't really like it, but there's a reason for him to be here. Yeah. So he slows down. The fire becomes steadier, and he has to work with the body, not despite the body or forcing the body into things. He has to work with the senses and work to build on what he values. So Venus is about value, and he's in Venus's domain, in her spa, right? So he has to consider what he values and do something about that. So this is the masculine element integrating with the feminine. He has to be really listening to the feminine to get what has value. The feminine is the holder of value. The masculine acts on behalf of that. Taurus doesn't allow rushing. It's just not a sign that does that. Now, I can tell you, I live in Ireland and there's cows outside my house, grazing in the field, and they don't do much for a long time. But when they decide to move, they can move fast, and there's a lot of power behind them, a lot of weight behind them. So Mars and Taurus can be like that, where the energy is seemingly placid. And then once there's that impetus to move forward, it does so with a lot of strength, a lot of power, and a lot of directed force. So Mars in Taurus is the warrior who has learned what is slowly built is what endures. And it's the capacity to sustain an effort over time, to not just initiate, but to hold what has been begun and what is building. Now, Mars is also in the middle of two conversations. One is getting more intense, and that's the applying square to Pluto, who is the god of the underworld and rules all things shadow, but also power, and also our collective unconscious, things that have a lot of energetic charge. Mars is the fire in the earth, and this is meeting the depths, which is Pluto in Aquarius. So there's something about action and meeting power, about will meeting transformation. So this is very powerful energy, and it's asking for sort of a reckoning of some kind. And it's a very powerful energy that we can use with skill. You know, if you like to do weight training or anything that asks you to meet resistance and stay with it, so you can process the pressure physically so it doesn't build up, right? Honest reckoning with what you can and what you can't control. So Pluto's the principle of what can't be held in its current form. It's asking for change. So Mars square Pluto is this moment of recognizing where your will may be pushing up against something that's actually transforming you on, its own terms, and going with it instead. Even though we might not feel that way, Mars in Taurus can be fixed, right? So it's asking us to move with a little bit more flexibility, right? And this is where Mercury can guide us here. We do have Mars in a harmonious conversation with Venus, who has just entered Cancer. So this is Aphrodite and Aries in a beautiful conversation, and they've both crossed into different energies, and the chemistry between them is generative. And Mars is in Aphrodite, Venus's domicile, so she's able to, even though he may get impatient, she's also kind of resourcing him and showing him how what he does now is creating lasting benefit. And so she's encouraging him and saying how appreciated he is for what he's building and what he's doing while he's in Taurus, and how important this work is now. So Venus has been in Gemini for nearly a month, where she's been quick and curious and conversational and finding beauty in the movement of minds. Now she enters water. So she's in this initiatory sign. It's initiation in the deep or emotional intelligence that Cancer holds. So Aphrodite also is to slow down, and she becomes interested in what is felt, not as much in what is said, right? So she becomes interested in belonging rather than more superficial social connection. And she's interested in what nourishes. So she moves from the eros of the mind into the eros of the heart. So she's in the domicile of the moon. It's feeling. And this is a very tender place for Venus to be. This is one of her more receptive expressions. She's interested in safety, in being held, in the intimacy that comes from emotional presence. So she's the love that wants to stay and, again, nourish. She's nurturing in this sign. Again, she's in this harmonious conversation with Mars. Both of them fresh in new ground, and they're in elements that support one another. So water nourishes earth. Earth holds water. So the chemistry here is grounded and it's emotionally flowing. And what's being woven this week in these personal planets is a different quality of relationship than we had even just last week. So action, desire, what is wanted, and what is felt. So the texture of it is changing. On May 21st, the sun crosses into Gemini. And the very next day, on May 22nd, the sun meets Uranus, also in Gemini, at the very first degree. So the same conjunction that struck Mercury 4 days earlier now strikes the sun. And this is the culminating moment of the doorway week. The sun is the principle of identity and vitality, of who you are at the most essential level. And when he meets Uranus in Gemini, what is being illuminated is everything that has been moving through the mind, the voice, the way you communicate, and the way you connect to your immediate world, how it relates to who you are becoming. So something about your identity may feel like it's shifting this week. The sun in Gemini conjunct Uranus is the experience of suddenly seeing yourself differently. And it may be that nothing external has changed, or it doesn't seem like it has, but it's because the quality of awareness is changing. So you're looking through different eyes that have been awakened. Uranus is the awakener, and Uranus is also the liberator. So Mercury is the guide who is walking beside you as you make this transition. And as the magician, he's amplifying the power of what you speak and what you understand. As the trickster, he's making sure the crossing surprises you and that it doesn't look like what you thought it would, that it's different and even a little weird. That's totally fine. Bring out that weirdness. That's probably where your greatest gifts live. I'd like to invite you to join me on my Patreon so you can get weekly podcasts every Monday or Moon Day. And also you can join our Veil Walkers community so you can connect with each other and with me. For those of you who have subscribed to my channel, thank you so much for doing that. And if you haven't already, why not? If you have Taurus Rising, the threshold for you is in the territory of your voice, of the immediate local environment, and how your mind works. Mercury and Uranus and the sun are in your third house, and this is the place of language, thought, daily exchange with your neighbors and the people at the supermarket and local spirits. So something is shifting in how you think and how you speak. And your strength is the courage to move first thought, best thought, and the shadow is that Aries tends to move at the speed of impulse. And this week, those impulses are arriving at lightning speed. So the temptation is to act on every download the moment it lands, and to fire off the message, to make the decision to start the new thing right away. Mercury-Uranus is definitely generating insight, but it's also generating a lot of electricity, and it can be a challenge to distinguish the two things when the heat's on. So try one practice of pausing before speaking this week. Maybe a wait time before sending the message. And Mercury has a message for you, Aries. He says to you, I know every doorway. The one I'm walking you through this week is the doorway of language, of communication. Your words. Things may come through that may surprise you. There's a brilliance to be received here, but take a moment to let it land. Let it gestate. I will walk beside you while you find the voice you are about to inhabit. If you have Taurus Rising, the doorway for you is in the territory of resource and self-worth. Mars has just entered your first house. The first house is your body, your presence, and the sun is about to cross into your second, where it will meet Uranus. So the way you hold your own value is shifting. And your strength is the embodied knowing. That's your sign's deepest gift. The wisdom that doesn't need to think because it already knows. This week, that knowing is being awakened, electrified. This could also touch into your shadow, where you treat the new recognition as a disruption to be resisted, rather than as an invitation to be received. Taurus can sometimes mistake the steadiness it loves for the truth of what is. But there's something to be shifted. More sense of worth and your true value is asking to be awakened. Hermes says to you, I am at the doorway of your worth this week. What you are crossing into is a different relationship to what you have, what you are made of, what you carry without needing to prove. The lightning has arrived in the ground of your value. I am your guide as you awaken to its full embodiment. If you have Gemini Rising, Mercury, Uranus, and the Sun are all in your first house. And this is the house of self, the body, and how you arrive in a room when somebody meets you face to face. This is your season. Your strength is the agility of your mind, your capacity to hold many truths at once without collapsing them into only one. This week, that gift is being ignited, rewired. Sudden recognitions about who you are and what you've outgrown may emerge. Sometimes it's easy to mistake the shock of the new for insight that will stay. Lightning isn't always the same as understanding. Let the recognitions land in the body that's receiving them. Try one thing slowly this week. Take a walk without headphones. Write something by hand. Name the sensations you're noticing in the room. Mercury says to you, Gemini, I am at home here in your sign, in your voice. What you are about to inhabit is a version of yourself that's been electrified. Don't rush to define it. Let it form. I am walking next to you, guiding you through. If you have Cancer Rising, the threshold for you is interior. Mercury and the Sun are crossing into your 12th house, the hidden room, the unconscious, beneath the surface, in solitude. And Venus has just entered your first house, your sign, your presence in the world. Your strength is the depth of your emotional intelligence, the capacity to read what is beneath the surface and create the conditions in which others feel held. The shadow is that you often prefer the interior to the visible. The temptation might be to stay inside and skip the part where you let yourself be seen. Aphrodite in your sign is asking for presence, for letting the inner work show where others can see your beauty. Your dreams are vivid this week. What are you dreaming? Mercury, the guide of dreams, the guide of souls, says to you, Cancer, the doorway you are crossing this week is mostly invisible from the outside. Aphrodite, though, has arrived in the house of who you are. The work this week is to receive both the inner awakening and the outer presence. I am the guide for thresholds the world can't see, and I am walking next to you. If you have Virgo Rising, the passageway for you is at the very top of your chart. Mercury, who is your chart ruler, has crossed into Gemini, met Uranus, and the sun is following into your 10th house. This is your vocation, your public life, and the way your work shows up in the world, your calling. Your strength is discernment, your capacity to see what is already there and bring your intelligence to whatever you tend. The shadow is that Virgo can take a fresh recognition and immediately begin to refine it, to edit it, to organize, to improve it, and sometimes the editing happens fast enough that the original aliveness of the insight is lost before it's fully honored. Mercury says to you, the doorway at the top of your chart is opening this week. What you do in the world is being changed, and fast. A new way of speaking about your work, a new clarity about what you are here to build, an awakening in how you answer your calling is arriving. I assist those who want to communicate a more visible form of themselves, and as your chart ruler, I am always here guiding you. If you have Libra Rising, the threshold for you is in the territory of meaning. The Sun and Mercury are crossing into your 9th house of belief and philosophy and the frameworks through which you understand your life. Your strength is your sensitivity to what's beautiful, what's fair, and what is in proportion, what balances the scales. The shadow is that Libra can use the gift of seeing all sides to hold competing views in perpetual balance and never quite landing on the one that is actually being asked of you. With the lightning in your house of meaning, the chart is asking for a position, a stand, an arrival at the place where what you know becomes how you live. Mercury says to you, you are crossing into a different understanding this week. You are holding your truth. It's awakening. A truth that you may have been circling is asking to be claimed, to be lived from. I am the God of eloquence, and I will guide you on how to speak this truth with beauty, but still speak it. I will walk you to the place where what you know becomes how you live. If you have Scorpio Rising, the threshold for you is in the depths. Mercury and the Sun and Uranus are all in your 8th house. This is intimacy, shared resources, and what transforms when two people meet. Your strength is in the willingness to go all the way into the truth of something, to not flinch from what is intense. The shadow is that Scorpio can find the depths so native that they become a place to just stay, rather than a place to pass through. When the lightning arrives in the 8th house, which is your home territory, the temptation is to descend and descend, to keep going, to let the intensity of the depth substitute for the work of bringing what was found back into ordinary life. You may resist the starry possibility of the open sky. Try one practice of returning this week, something ordinary, moving slowly, that brings you back into the daylight body. Mercury says to you, I have walked many souls across the doorway of the underworld. This week, the lightning has arrived in your most native territory. Something in your closest exchanges is shifting. What is shared, what is exchanged, what passes between you and the people who are closest to you. I am with you in this crossing as you take the chance to communicate what is deeply felt and what has transformed. If you have Sagittarius Rising, the threshold for you is in the mirror. Mercury, the Sun, have crossed into your 7th house, the significant other, the one who stands across from you, the partnership that reflects something back. Your strength is your orientation toward the horizon and your capacity for vision and how you see the big picture. The shadow is that Sagittarius can hold the philosophical view so naturally that the specific person in front of you becomes a smaller part of a larger story rather than the actual encounter the moment is asking for. The work this week is in the relationship, the conversation, the eye contact, your presence with the particular other that you are meeting. The other being. Mercury says to you, this week, the energy shifts in relationship. The other you're relating to is bringing the awakening, and this may arrive in a form that you didn't expect. The lightning has arrived in the relational field. I am the guide of crossings. Travel slowly through this one. The meeting is the work. If you have Capricorn Rising, Mercury and Uranus and the Sun are crossing into your 6th house. This is your daily life, your work, and your daily rituals, in your health, and how you live your life moment by moment. So your strength is in your capacity for the long view, your understanding that what is worth building takes time and takes consistent care. You're aligned with time. You naturally align with the seasons and with the top of the mountain. The shadow is that Capricorn can be so oriented toward the meaningful long game that the small daily texture gets demoted to mere maintenance, the necessary but uninteresting backdrop to the work. but the lightning is in the 6th house, and the chart is saying that the real work is the daily texture. What you do day to day is what builds the entire year. Mercury says to you, Capricorn, the doorway you are crossing this week is the doorway into the ordinary. The lightning has arrived in the texture of your days, in the small rhythms, in the body signals, in the details of the work that builds your empire. What you do daily is being given a different voltage. Use it with my mercurial adaptability and cleverness. If you have Aquarius Rising, the threshold point is in the creative self, the 5th house. Pleasure, creativity, desire as creative force, what you make that is unmistakably your self-expression. Your strength is your capacity to think beyond convention, to hold a vision of what is possible beyond what currently exists. The shadow is that Aquarius Rising naturally orients toward the collective, the larger vision, what serves the group, and the 5th house of personal pleasure can feel like an indulgence to be justified, rather than a birthright to inhabit. With the awakening in your creative house, the work is to remember that delight and play are not lesser forms of contribution. They are the source. Mercury says to you, the doorway is in the room of what you create. What wants to come through you may surprise you. It should be fun. I am the guide of those who cross into more vivid forms of themselves. I will guide you as you take risks and let your inner child awaken, just for joy and just for play. If you have Pisces Rising, the threshold for you is in the foundation, your 4th house, home, root, the private interior of your life. Your strength is the way you attune to the collective unconscious, to the dream, to the imagination. The shadow is that Pisces' permeability can be so generous that the home interior absorbs what was never personal to begin with, moods from the outside world, energies from others, ambient currents that take up residence as if they belonged there, as if they were at home. With the awakening in the foundation, the work is liberation from what is not actually yours. Mercury says, Pisces, the doorway this week is in the root system. The lightning has arrived in the foundation of your home, in the private interior, in the ground that holds everything else. What is shifting here is underground, but it's also lasting. I am the guide of crossings that happen below the surface. Awakenings that change the root system. Your ancestors walk with you as you awaken.